you start to experience mental fatigue, decline, or, impaired cognitive function, that has a direct impact on your business and your ability to kind of, progress with the things that you want to do. So it really is an important part of looking after ourselves.
This is the Born to be Brilliant podcast, helping you harness the habits and unlock the tools to bring you more meaning, vibrance, and the personal power to help you shine like the diamond you are. Carli Foster is with me today. She's a life coach and nutritional therapist, and Carli's going to be talking to us all about how we can get ourselves in the best physical and mental shape to be at our absolute best. Carli, a huge welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, total pleasure. So Carli, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your expertise and why you do what you do.
So I'll just give you a little bit of background. I originally started my career in finance. I'm actually a chartered accountant. I kind of fell into that career because I didn't really know what else to do with myself, to be perfectly honest. And it just seemed like, a nice, safe, steady career. Thought I was going to climb the corporate ladder, but I ended up wasn't the right career for me at all. So suffering really badly with chronic stress, probably for about a 10-year period. And I changed jobs thinking I was going to go and get a better work-life balance. And I think I did it about 3 times where I quit my job because I just got myself in such a state, but really on the edge of some kind of breakdown each time. Went into the next one. It was kind of like out of the frying pan into the fire each time. And I just got to the point where I just thought, I can't go on like this. I wasn't also, just to give a slightly different angle to this, rather than fixing the real problem, I was also a massive emotional eater, really struggled with my weight. And I was just completely absorbed and obsessed with trying to lose weight because I thought that would help me feel better about myself and, I'd be happier once I'd lost the weight and, be able to do all this stuff. And I just got caught into the kind of classic trap of living for the weekend, the next holiday, waiting for things to calm down at work all the time. And I just ended up having a session with a life coach, and she asked me, like, this sounds quite a cheesy question, but it really just stopped me in my tracks. And she's like, what do you want your legacy to be? And I was just like, oh my God, I've never thought about it in that kind of like way before. And I was just in danger of looking back on a huge chunk of my life, pointlessly updating Excel spreadsheets and being on a miserable diet. And it was a huge wake up call for me. And I did quite a profound, life-changing course myself, a coaching program, and it just completely shifted my thinking, and it made me want to retrain as a nutritional therapist. That's where I originally started. So I went and did a 3-year course, and I studied at the weekends and did 200 hours of clinical observation, all around like a very full-on full-time finance job still. And then sort of slowly transitioned into working. I switched to contracting initially on the finance side and then left my corporate job completely, probably about 5 years ago now. And I just went on this whole journey where I looked at each and every area of my life and just thought, is this what really lights me up? Is this what I want to be doing? Because I had got in such a negative, horrible space of living with stress. And I think my health had really started to suffer. And I think particularly with chronic stress, it's one of those things that just gradually, slowly creeps up on you. We all take our health for granted until the symptoms hit and they become debilitating, and we really need to do something about it. And often when you go to the doctors, particularly when it's kind of the symptoms of stress, I think sometimes that they're not that helpful in terms of picking it up. It's like, have some blood tests or they come back normal, everything's fine, kind of go away again. But you're like, but it's not fine. I know me, it's not fine. And so I'd had a lot of that going on as well. And I've got this really strange story to tell about the impacts of stress that actually had on me. So I'd been to
Mm.
the doctors a few times. I thought I had hormonal imbalances, all sorts of things. But yeah, everything's normal, everything's normal. And then I was working with somebody and doing some like yoga therapy. And she
Mm.
said, I've got this friend, she's going to come to my house for like a yoga day. We're going to have this really lovely, relaxing day. She's got this special machine. And I was like, okay, what's this special machine? She's like, it can detect cancer cells, viruses, and fungi. And she's like, it's like a wand. She'll wave it over you and it detects these things. You know, you're just like, this sounds completely crazy. I was like, I want to give it a go because I'm always interested,
Yeah.
always open-minded with this kind of stuff. Anyway,
Mm.
it was this weird experience where it was almost like a rubber band was flicking on your skin. That was the kind of sensation
Right.
sometimes. And this machine would start hissing, really like violently hissing at certain points as she was waving it over my body. And at the end of the session, she said, you've got so much fungi all over your body. And you're just like, what? She's like, so
Wow.
much fungi. And I was like, no one really wants to be told that about
No.
themselves. So the nutritional therapist in me thought, okay, I've got access to some like functional medicine type testing.
Yeah.
I'm going to test myself for candida, which is a fungi that can get out of control. And as I kind of looked down the symptoms, a lot of the symptoms that I had put down to just stress, like out of control sugar cravings, brain fog, being really tired and exhausted all of the time,
Mm.
but also symptoms of candida. Anyway, I went off, sent off this stool sample, lovely, came back and I also did like a mouth swab and I had candida. So this bizarre experience with the machine did actually highlight that I had quite a significant candida overgrowth. And that's where some of my symptoms were coming from. It wasn't just stress alone, but stress had essentially lowered my secretory IgA, which is kind of like your first line defense against
Yeah.
things in the body. So that had meant that things could proliferate where they wouldn't normally be able to. And that's kind of like stress had obviously impacted my body and caused that. But had I not gone for this bizarre treatment, I probably never would have found that out.
No. Where can that sit? Like, any, she said you've got this all over your body. Like, but is it located somewhere? Because I've heard that you can have that in the gut. And
Yeah.
is that where it would be? Like,
So yeah, I predominantly had it in the gut, but you can also have oral candida, which is the
yeah,
case for me. So I had it in my mouth and in my gut. And I think I had a history of having thrush as well, which is another area that it can
yeah,
proliferate.
yeah. So clearly, yeah, you can have that without actually knowing that you can be walking around without any symptoms. And I'm sure it's not the only thing you can have without knowing, but yeah,
So candida is something that we do just have in our gut, and
yeah.
normally it's just part of our gut healthy population and it doesn't cause any symptoms and it can be
Mm,
quite normal. It's just obviously with stress, adding a pressure in the body that can allow proliferation of certain things. And that has
ah,
been what had happened in my case, that
mm,
this had just got out of control and it had started to cause some symptoms. But
yeah,
the symptoms were so generic, if you like, could be caused by a lot of
right.
different things. You might not connect the dots and think, oh, it's a candida overgrowth. And it's
Mm,
certainly not something you'd probably go to the doctors and they would pick up particularly easily. You'd
no.
just kind of be sent for testing, the classic, everything's normal, everything's fine, because
Mm,
they're not looking for things like that.
okay. And so I guess the lesson here being that stress can cause so many things,
Yeah.
inflammation, and other things that then lead to other things. It's definitely something I'm always really mindful of, because I think when you're ambitious, you quite often put yourself under a lot of pressure, which can bring about stress, which is obviously something you're very passionate about helping people overcome. So this is part of the journey, right, into what you do.
Yeah. So this then completely shifted my own experiences with stress and how, you know, I'd got into such a, I felt stress had completely robbed me of the person that I was. I turned into this really negative person who complained all the time that,
Mm.
I couldn't see beyond my circumstances and situation. And then, you know, as I, even just the shift from moving from a permanent role to a contracting role
Mm.
just shifted everything so much for me. And I could see then that, the work that I was doing to retrain as a nutritional therapist was just so important because like having that weight lifted completely changed my health, my outlook, my personality, you know,
Mm.
so much more chilled out and calm, like back to being me again. And I think it's easy, particularly when you're running your own business.
Mm.
It can be quite isolating sometimes, depending
Yeah.
on the business that you're running. It's easy to kind of get very stuck in your own head about things,
Yeah.
not realize the impact that everything is having until you kind of then have health consequences later down the line.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And sometimes we'll get this. I once had this analogy, and it's always stuck with me. Is that you'll get the little. It's like the feather, the brick, and the truck. Like the feather is like that little something you need to look out for here. Like that could just be, I don't know, coming down with a really bad cold or an illness where your immune system's kind of, you're just susceptible to the brick, which is like, okay, this, I'm really not well, like something's not right. And then the truck are the big bad things that you
Mm.
don't want to get to. And like I used to say, and I should get back to this a lot more now, don't wait for the truck, like listen and look out for the little signs so that you can course correct, because you can course correct, right?
There's so much you can do to course correct. Definitely. Even just it, the way that you're thinking about stress can make a massive difference. So seeing stress as some stress as quite a positive thing means it is a positive thing.
Yeah.
But if you're obviously, it's when it becomes chronic day to day, like I was having chest pains, I was
Okay.
constantly running on adrenaline, there's
Yeah.
very obvious signs that it's definitely not the right
Too
kind of
much.
stress.
How do you know if it's too much or not? Because, like you said, some stress is normal and
Yeah.
we need it. Like, our bodies go into a stress response to keep us safe. And, like, if we were to see a saber toothed tiger, we need to feel the stress to run, otherwise, we wouldn't care. So, we need some. And I always say that it's how we manage it that matters, and that some people are better at managing it than others, and there are things that will help, and good sleep can help, and recovery and all these things. But so the goal isn't obviously to eliminate all stress, but
No.
how do we know when we are in a healthy level of stress, or even if it's a little heightened, we are resilient enough that we're managing it in a healthy way? On how do we know when, no, this isn't really okay, like it's too much, or is it
Yeah.
instinctive, like?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think if your sleep is being disrupted, whether that's, you've got that tired, wired feeling in the evening,
Mm.
if you're waking up in the morning and feeling utterly exhausted and it's a struggle to get up, because you can then, with those two things, that your cortisol is not quite doing what it should be doing. Because,
Mm.
in the evening, we should be winding down. So your
Yeah.
cortisol levels are dropping. And in the morning, you should get that nice surge to help you wake up. But if you're not getting that surge to kind of like give you that lift up in the day, something is not quite right in those levels and the way that they're moving
Mm.
is
Mm.
definitely something to look out for. If your appetite is disrupted, I think that
Mm-hmm.
is also one. Either you're turning to sugar a lot
Mm-hmm.
because you need that quick source of energy, or you're finding that your appetite is suppressed because you're running on adrenaline all the time. So you're skipping meals because you're so like I'm on the go, on the go. I think
Mm.
those are the kind of things to just sort of warning signs that are going to say, actually, let's just reassess, how do I feel about stress? Is it impacting me? Are
Mm.
you also feeling, you know, in a negative place with it? And that in yourself intuitively, I think, whether it's good stress or bad stress. And,
Yeah.
I think the circumstances around you also dictate that. So you can be busy, excited, you've got lots of things, projects that you're really excited about and so on, and it's feeling good
Yeah.
versus everything is going wrong right now and I'm just like
It's
constantly on
hard.
it. Yeah. And
Mm,
so I think those different factors all feed into each other and that can give you lots of good indications as to whether it's good or bad. Just talking to people and just kind of,
mm,
saying how you feel, I think also can make a big difference, especially if you're running a business where you are doing a lot of stuff on your own all the time,
mm.
or, like you're talking to clients, but there's not that space for you to talk to somebody about how you're feeling, what you're doing, and what's going
Yeah.
on in your life.
Does your body and brain know the difference in the positive and negative? So I don't know, you could be really stressed about something, like I know you're putting on a party for somebody and it's stressful because you've got the pressure or whatever else, but actually you are excited about it and it's a good thing, as opposed to really stressed about something that is really upsetting or yeah, or negative or bad, or within you. Does I would have thought that it just does, but
Yeah.
does the body, yeah,
I
the
think
brain knows the
your
body, yeah.
your perception of the stress and how you're handling it and what you believe about that and your ability to handle it, I think massively plays a huge role. So if
Yeah.
you perceive stress to be a generally positive thing for you, then it will be a positive thing for you.
Mm,
But if you obviously think, you know, it's the end of the world, I'm really struggling, I can't cope, then that's also going to play out in a lot more detrimental way, I think.
mm. And is there scientifically anything like with that, in that if the brain is seeing it as negative, it's probably seeing it as threat, so it's going to go into the protective things. That's when it comes out in our bodies, and it, like when we are in fight or flight, digestion's effective, so we don't absorb nutrients and all those sorts of things. Is there a, because it's a negative, the messages, I guess, that are happening between the brain and the gut and the heart and so on, I suppose, are different messages. Is there
Yeah,
anything
and
in that? I'm
I
making that
think
up.
Kelly McGonigal has done a lot of work around your perception of stress and then the kind of impacts that it has as to whether if you see stress as a good thing, it's generally, less
Yeah,
inflammatory
yeah,
versus you see it as a bad thing and you're much more likely to have, a less, what's the word? So if you see stress as a positive thing, you're building resilience and the body builds resilience as well. But if you see it as a negative thing, then it's probably more damaging and more likely to cause a lot of oxidative stress.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So what's your guidance on this, like, for, I know your expertise in supporting people physically and mentally with this, like, what, talk to me a little bit about how that works and how you work with people on this.
So I, whenever it comes to any kind of change related to, whether you want to build healthy habits or change your lifestyle, reduce your stress, I think it's really important to start with what you believe to be
Yeah,
true around these things. So, I
yeah.
mean, I often work with women who want to lose weight, for example, and if you believe that weight loss is going to be hard, if you believe healthy eating is going to be hard, if you believe that you've always been a certain body size
Mm,
and you can't quite imagine anything else,
mm,
then some of these beliefs need to start shifting.
mm-hmm.
And I think approaching it from that point first and building almost like the right mindset
Yeah.
about change so that you're in a really good place to be open to
Mm,
changing and how that might work and sort of taking that on board first rather than diving into a change.
mm,
And what I see often is that, particularly when it comes to health and fitness and movement and things like that, people will dive into a diet and fitness program that's generic
mm-hmm.
and then they will shoehorn it into a very busy life. It's
Mm,
something else that they have to do now with an extra thing or multiple extra things on a to-do list
mm,
rather than starting from the basis like how can I create the right conditions internally for me to
Mm-hmm.
start taking on healthy habits and lifestyle changes, and looking at my existing life and
Mm.
what is feasible and easy for me just to draw in and kind of almost like work with what I'm doing now,
Yeah.
rather than trying to like radically change something and get really overwhelmed trying to do lots of different things and then think that, oh, well, there must be something wrong with me because I can't stick to this.
Mm.
So I really believe in a very personalised approach
Mm-hmm.
of, let's find what works for you. Let's
Yeah.
look at how you like to eat. Because, like the classic example is, if you love to eat bread, don't go on a low carb diet. There's
Mm.
other ways that you can get the same outcome. You don't have to give up
Yeah.
bread, or you don't have to give up things that you love. And I think starting from that basis can
Mm.
make change so much easier, because
Mm.
you are just creating the right conditions to set yourself up for success,
Mm-hmm.
rather than setting yourself up and then you make it mean something about you and it doesn't. It's just that you haven't found what works for you.
Yeah, yeah, if it's unattainable or too big. And I think you're right, because people are different. There'll be people who go, they're all or nothing kind of people, so they
Yeah,
respond well to that. There are other people who are not. They're more little and often type people, or, you know, the things there's some people will go, I'm going to eliminate that and never have it again. And others are like, no, actually, I just need to get it into a nice moderate and sensible level. And I think we're different, aren't we? Some people respond to
yeah.
extreme change, others respond better to small change. And mm,
And I think it's a really important point, understanding yourself
mm,
and what you need,
mm,
and then building it out from there. Because, like you said,
mm.
everyone is different. Some people love an extreme, like hard hitting program. I mean, I'm one of those
Yeah.
people, I have to say.
Yeah.
I come out, it's not hard enough. I want it harder, kind of thing.
Driven by challenge, then, like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
like a challenge.
yeah.
Um, that, I will put, I find the hardest thing to do, like in a lot of my areas of my life, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Sometimes not the best plan for me, but I just think if we understand ourselves and how best to motivate ourselves, because we all do know really what we how we respond to things. Some people love accountability, but some people just like, just leave me up. I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to crack on with it.
Mm.
Um, so really thinking about those aspects of your personality and your lifestyle and how busy you are and what's realistic for you.
Mm.
But then equally, some people were just like, I want totally unrealistic. I'm aiming for, I'm going to shoot for the moon, get stars, great. So I think it's such a step that people just skip over.
Yeah, I totally can see that. I like that you touched on the belief, like it's almost like you become your beliefs a little bit too, isn't it? So if you believe, as an example in my mind a minute ago, I'm trying to remember what it was. But if you, like you said, if you believe something's going to be hard, it will be hard. If you believe,
Yeah,
it feels like if you believe that doing this or making this change is going to be like pushing water up a hill, you can sure as heck bet that it will be, because you've already decided that it's going to be, and therefore that you're going to approach it from that mindset, from that place. So yeah. Whereas if you believe that, no, this is, I can do this is going to be great, and you've got that motivation, you're going to approach it with, and it could be the exact same thing, just coming at it from a completely different belief. I think, do you see that affecting
oh,
people
100%.
wildly differently?
Because it can be difficult to just suddenly, think, oh, well, getting health is going to be really fun. I'm really going to love this. I can't wait to get started. But the way I get around that with clients, I was like, but what if it could be fun?
Mm,
Just ask yourself, like, what if it could
mm,
be fun? What if, you could enjoy it?
yeah,
Just asking the question rather than saying, like switching to the belief, because sometimes it's hard to get behind that belief fully.
yeah, yeah,
So you just kind of start gently, just like, well, what if it could be? Maybe I'm open to that possibility that
yeah.
it might be fun and it might be enjoyable. And so just kind of opening yourself up to the possibilities.
Mm,
I think is quite a nice way of easing yourself in gently to that thing. Um, just interestingly, I think one of the things that is really good to do whenever you're doing sort of healthy habits is trying to associate something pleasurable with the habit.
mm,
So
yeah,
a classic example that I heard of this recently is Stephen Fry actually lost a lot of weight, and he did that by walking on a treadmill because he started listening to all his favorite books on audio
great.
while he was walking on the treadmill, so that
Yeah.
he associated pleasure because he loved obviously listening to great works of fiction as he was just
Mm,
walking on a treadmill.
mm,
So he then over time built up that strong neural pathway
mm,
of pleasure with an
yeah,
activity that before he wouldn't particularly enjoy. So I think that is, how can you associate pleasure with activities that you don't really want to do,
yeah,
is a good technique. And it's quite easy just to listen to a podcast, an audio book, your favorite music. Those are the
yeah,
kind of like classic ways that you might do that. But exercising with a friend,
yeah,
um, I have a different approach sometimes that I do. So
yep.
it's quite hard for me to fit. I have two small children, 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Oh wow, hats
So
off to you. That's a handful.
yeah, mornings are quite an intense experience trying to get everybody
Yeah.
ready and out the
Oh, they
door.
still are at 12 and 14, believe me.
Don't tell me that. I was hoping that that's just short lived. um, but so it can be challenging for me to find time to, like meditate or journal or,
Yeah.
like do all those beautiful morning routines that
Mm.
billionaires tell you are
Yeah.
essential for starting your day with. But I take 10 minutes in the morning
Yeah.
and I always do my makeup. And to me, that's a really mindful activity.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I just sit there, just quietly. There might be TV and the kids in the background and everything, but
Yeah.
I've just taken a normal everyday activity and
Mm.
reframed it
Yeah.
as something that for me is
Yeah.
now a very mindful activity that prepares me for the day. And so
Mm-hmm.
thinking about what other tasks that you're currently doing in your day and
Mm.
how you just might reframe that a little bit to think,
Yeah.
well, this is me time. Like I cannot bear, and I hate it with a passion, putting washing, hanging it up on one of those areas.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm just like, okay, well, I'm gonna I'm gonna use that time to learn something. So I'm gonna listen to an audiobook, I'm gonna do some training, I'm gonna listen to a podcast so that
Yeah.
that's not just
Wasted.
time of me just being really like, I hate this.
I really like that. Yeah, attaching the thing. And it's like saying almost instead of, oh, I have to do this thing I don't want to do, it's like, actually, no, this is an opportunity I get to do the thing. And like with the makeup thing, you've kind of gone, well, no, I'm doing this for me. Not because
Yeah.
I have to. I'm finding joy in this, and hanging the washing out or any kind of. Before you even said it, I was thinking about other sort of household chore type things that people go, oh, this is in my routine. But actually, if it's even, I don't know, cleaning the kitchen side, it's like, I love a lovely clean space. So I get to do this to create that space and almost like giving, like you say, reframing, not, oh my gosh, I have to do this. This
Mm,
sucks. But actually, no, I get to do this so I can create a beautiful space. Or no, I get to take this time and do my makeup. I really enjoy this. This is like my art. This is my creativity. This is mindful time for me. I'm taking it rather than I've got to do the thing. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And even with exercise, I'm such a tour, I need to go and do some exercise, but actually no, I get to move my body. I'm so lucky that I can. A lot of people can't, and I get to have that time for myself. Sure, plug something in you want to listen to, or attach like that reward, I guess, to it. It's how we train animals, right? They they have to come and do a thing and they get a treat. It's like attaching a pleasure and a good meaning to the activity. Like, I really like that.
100%.
Mm,
And one of my other things, particularly around exercise, that I love to do, like I'm a very goal orientated person.
yeah.
Um, I love having a very clear, specific goal.
Mm,
So as I approached my 40th birthday, this is a couple of years ago now, I'm 43, um,
I would never have thought
I
that.
decided that I was going to get in the best shape of my life
Hmm.
and I was going to have a photo shoot. And purely for vanity purposes, so I had like nice pictures to look back on when I was older. I was like, yeah, I'm going for it. And then I ended up being pregnant with my son for my 40th birthday. It was very like that's so nauseous and like ill in the first trimester. I was like, okay, we'll have to postpone this. So 9 weeks after I had my son, I started working with a couple of like classic personal trainers. They're lovely, like Dubai type influencers. But yeah, they were amazing. They were bodybuilding champions, but they
Wow.
organised photo shoots for their clients. And I was like, yes, this is it. I'm going to train with them. They set me a program, like strength training program. I did most of my training in my garage when I first started because I've got like a squat rack and some adjustable dumbbells and a spin bike. So quite a basic setup, but absolutely perfect, did the job. So I set myself this big goal of like a photo shoot. And one was like a lingerie one. And I ended up signing up for two because, I'm that person. You're like, why do one when you can do two?
Yeah. All in.
Just go hard or go home.
Yeah.
And the other one was like a fitness lingerie type shoot. And there's nothing quite as motivating as having to strip off wear very little clothing in front of other people and do a photo shoot to make sure you show up and do the work. But
Yeah.
it was such an incredible experience going through
Mm.
that. Like I had a very clear, exciting goal.
Mm-hmm.
Had a very kind of like I started a nice Pinterest board of things, poses and outfits that I was going to wear and, like
Yeah.
really anchored it in visually to what I was working towards, and just
Yeah.
having something and a clear deadline
Mm-hmm.
really made me kind of show up consistently, do the work, and
Mm.
it was a really good experience. And then I subsequently decided to take up like doing bodybuilding bikini shows in my 40s because, why not?
Why
So I
not?
went on to do
Oh yeah.
two bodybuilding shows. One of them was this year, actually. That was quite a funny one because I'd done one bodybuilding show had such an amazing experience to go through the level of discipline. Like you build such a level of discipline and confidence because you have to do all
Yeah.
the posing on stage.
Mm.
And that is an art form in itself.
I
It takes a
bet.
lot of work to really pose well and showcase your physique on stage. And I
Yeah.
just loved it. I just really, really loved the
Cool.
discipline of it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I did my first show and then I like was absolutely addicted and thought, I'm going to sign up to do another one. But this one was a little bit different, the one that I signed up to do this year, all
Mm.
female bodybuilding show, well, modern modeling fitness kind of show,
Mm.
but it's all about female empowerment. The woman who owns it is incredible,
Mm.
real kind of women supporting women vibe. And she
Yeah.
has quite different fun categories. So there's the normal kind of bikini category that I entered and like this fitness model round. But they also do like the pin-up girl round and there was a
Yeah.
showgirls category. And
Oh, cool.
I'd also decided in my 40s to go back to pole dancing.
Yeah.
So I just love pole dancing. That's why I think with exercise, it's just like picking something that feels fun
You
or,
like.
like I've
Yeah.
always wanted to try that and just it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
just going to the gym or it doesn't have to
Mm.
be running, like there's a myriad of different things that you can get involved in and try. But
Yeah.
yeah, preparing for bikini competition is quite hard. And then I decided to make it even more hard for myself
Of
by
course.
doing a pole dance performance for one of the categories. So I've never performed on stage in any kind of dance before. I'm not a professional dancer. And then I thought, yeah, I'm going to do a pole dance in
Good
front of
for
people.
you.
Honestly, the most terrifying, hard thing I've done in my life.
Talk about stretching comfort zone, though.
Yeah, but to me, that's quite a fun and exciting thing to do. And I think that's
Yeah.
when, you know, the personal sense of achievement when you are
Mm.
signing up to do things, even if it's a 5K race or a 10K race, um, it's such a lovely sense of achievement, and
Mm,
having that as part of your kind of like goals, I think is
yeah,
such a nice thing to do. Whatever it is that you're into, even just those things like I've done the charity walks and things like that.
yeah,
Such a great atmosphere. You meet lots of different people through doing exercise. Because that's the
yeah,
thing for me. I work at home on my own all of the time. I've got two young children.
yeah.
Exercise has now become a big part of my daily human interaction. And
And
I've
it's
met
so
some
good for
incredible
you.
people. Yeah.
That's it. And I think that you can apply that to so many things, whether it be your health and fitness or something that supports you mentally or in business or whatever it may be. It's that you talked about that goal and that motivation. I know lots of people who will go, in order to make myself train more, I'm going to sign up to a marathon or a half marathon or something or an event, because it gives them the accountability to, well, I'm going to do that, so I'm going to have to do this to get there. Otherwise, I might not do it. And it's what, again, what works for the individual. I'm a home workout person and I like to do that on my own. And I do it, and I do it really consistently. But lots of people wouldn't. They'd be like, no, I need to go to a place and I need it to be a go to an external thing, and I need to have a trainer that I meet because they need that accountability.
Mm.
And that, again, it's knowing that if that's you, make that, set that up for yourself and create that. um I have one around doing something that's purely for pleasure, for joy, just because, for no reason. It's not for your health or your business, it's just for fun. And it's getting back to that. If you're a busy mum and you have work to do, you can forget about having fun. So is there a thing you can do, or a hobby or something that you can do that's for fun, but maybe you attach it to a goal if you need the goal, like music or an instrument? It could be like, oh, I want to be able to play that piece, or
Mm.
so the goal is to play the piece. Right, to play the piece I need to practice, so I'm going to spend the time. That gives me that joy, or whatever it might be. So I really like that, and I think it's, again, one of those things that you think is probably common sense, but it's just not common practice. We don't do it, do we? And we just go, oh, yeah,
No.
one day I'll start that, or I'll do that, and we just push it back and back and back.
Yeah, and it is that kind of like one day I'll do it mentality, because we are so busy. But actually, just picking up something you said there about learning a musical instrument or doing these challenges actually is really important for brain health. So,
Yeah,
um, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is
yeah,
around brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So it's called
yeah,
BDNF, which is a bit easier to say than the full name. But this is a
yeah.
protein, and it's really important for protecting brain health and cognitive function.
Mm,
And it helps with neuroplasticity, so building new neural pathways and connections for adaptation of the brain. Obviously hugely important for learning, memory, and cognitive function. It's
yeah.
also important for your mood. And low BDNF has been associated with mood disorders and with mental health challenges. It also helps protect you against sort of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and other I can't say the word now, neurodegenerative
Degenerative. Yep, I got you.
diseases. So BDNF is a really important thing. And what increases BDNF is exercise. It's also increased by mental challenges, like things that we've just talked about, learning a new instrument. So
Hmm.
these things might seem like a fun, nice to have, or things, but they actually have really important impacts on our brain health and our like cognitive function. So they are actually a really important investment in the future of your business, because
Mm,
if you start to experience mental fatigue, decline, or impaired cognitive function, that has
mm,
a direct impact on your business and your ability to kind of progress with the things that you want to do. So
mm.
it really is an important part of looking after ourselves, in terms of our
Yeah.
health, because one of my favorite definitions of health is it's the ability to live your dreams. And I
Hmm.
think that's you know such a nice definition of and the way to think about it.
It is. And I mean, you see older people not wanting to put any number on that, but you do see older people doing Sudoku and puzzles and things like that to keep their brains occupied when, you know, they're past retirement, they're potentially not being challenged in the way they once were. And I think that's amazing. And they're trying to help keep a healthy brain and keep these things away. Hey, you mentioned about neuroplasticity. Is there any link there though in making those things joyful and fun and it being pleasure centered? Because you can, and I know a lot of our listeners will be people who are like, yeah, but I'm always learning something, or, you know, lots of people are always studying, oh, I'm going to take this course and learn this thing because we're so interested in all these things, but they're still attached to work and mission and purpose. And yes, we enjoy
Yeah,
them, we do them through choice, no one's forcing us, but perhaps it does still feel a bit like it's work and not just purely for no reason but just pure fun. Like, is there anything in that? Do we need to make sure we get some of those as well?
I think so. It's a huge part of the work that I do with pretty much every client because, you
Mm,
know, even though, you know, a lot of us run our own businesses, it's absolutely our passion and purpose, and we love it and it lights us up. And sometimes it doesn't feel like work at all, and it's amazing. And, you
yeah.
know, we still need, a, you know, to compartmentalize that, I think, and just
Hmm.
remember that that's not everything. And there's joy and pleasure and fun to be had just for the sake of it, and almost like
Yeah.
having those inner childlike joyful moments of, you know,
Yeah.
we're not doing, you know, like ticking things off a to-do list. We're just being
Mm,
and letting the flow, and there's no rhyme or reason, no outcome necessary. It's
yeah.
just switching off and just giving our brains like a little bit of a break.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost giving it a treat, because I think I meet people often who are a lot like me, and I struggle to have any hobby that in my lifetime I haven't tried in some way or other to turn into a business, or without being able to help myself, just seeing like, there's a business in this. And, you know, one of my biggest passions is actually singing. And I'd say is, not was, but I was a professional singer. But actually being paid to do that kind of killed the joy. And eventually it
Mm,
was like, now it's just work. Like, and don't get me wrong, I did love it, but when people say now, do you miss it? I'm like, I don't miss being a professional singer, but yes, I do miss singing and I should do it more. But it's yeah, I think there's definitely, it's important to have things that you're doing. It's not for anything other than just for you. Like,
uh,
and yeah,
it's so
feel good.
important. I think particularly, you know, we're all very ambitious women, I'm guessing. So
Yes. Yeah.
you're the exact people are going to be listening to this podcast
Yeah.
are very ambitious women. You
Yeah.
know, we want to be doing it all and, you know,
Yeah.
just having this epic, extraordinary, you know, full on life.
Yeah.
And as much as that, for the most part, is like really joyful and really lights us up, and that's what we get excited about, there's still just this, you know, just you need to kind of just switch that off,
Yeah.
and just be for a bit and just
Yeah.
enjoy and not have to make everything super goal orientated or outcome
Mm.
orientated or for a specific purpose. I think it's really important because I'm 100% guilty of doing that. I'm like, I've got to have a goal, I've got to
Yeah.
be working towards something. And
Yeah.
for me, actually, it's karaoke. Like, I love karaoke. Can't
Yeah.
get enough of it.
Amazing. Me too. Yeah, I think that's so true. And actually, it's remembering that whatever it is you do, you probably started from that place of passion anyway. And so, actually, when you are in a place of joy and enjoyment, that's going to connect in your brain, which is going to, I'm again, this is not my area of expertise, but it's got to surely have that kind of reaction within your brain and your body, which will seep through and show through in all the things you do, and in your relationships, in your health, in your work, and in
Mm.
everything, right? So I say this as a massive reminder to myself, but I think it's valid to everyone, you know, just, yeah, remembering to make it fun.
And one of the things that I will just mention here, which I think is a really important point, and because I've done this in the past and I've beaten myself up for it. So
Mm.
I used to love, like when I lived in London, I would go to all sorts of weird and wonderful exercise classes. Like I'd be doing aerial silks one week, I'd be doing trapeze the next week, and then
Yeah.
I'd be doing like a martial art, like I'd stick it over a little bit of time. And then I was just like, oh, I just never stick at anything. And, you should, stick at it for longer and really pick something that you're going to focus on. And I was like, actually, why?
Why?
I
Says
just
who?
really like trying new stuff and seeing what I like and what I don't like. And,
Mm.
like that's also okay to do. Like
Yeah.
maybe, one week you do start learning the violin. And next week you think, no, actually, I fancy the piano. I'm going to learn the piano. And then you just think, no, I want to take up martial arts. Absolutely nothing wrong with that either. Just
Yeah.
try as much as you want. If you want to stick at it, stick at it. If you don't, keep trying stuff because why not?
Yeah. I have that with books. If you feel like you don't want to finish it, it's okay. You can start another one. You don't have to read all the way
Yeah,
to the end if you've got everything you wanted from that book.
I know,
It's like, who
right?
says?
For
Where's the
me,
rules?
and this is a really good point that I do want to talk about. Is it's the same with like diet, exercise, and everything. We get
Mm,
so hung up on
mm,
rules and
mm,
following rules for things, and just like there are no rules. We
mm.
get to decide for ourselves what rules we want to take on, what we want to reject.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy, particularly when it comes to health, is, like we have to be following a certain set of rules in order to be healthy. We've got to have the perfect morning routines, set ourselves up for the day. We must be meditating every single day. And
Mm,
actually, you get to cherry pick the best
yeah.
of everything and decide which bits you like, which bits you don't. And,
Yeah.
it's your life, your rules.
Quite. And if you are struggling in a certain way and you know that incorporating one of those things is going to be great for you and you want to do that, great. But don't moan and not be prepared to do any of them. And I think it's that, isn't it? It's like looking at,
Yeah,
well, which things would work for me and how exactly. It doesn't have to be by that exact formula. Maybe I have a thing with meditating where I don't like, if meditating means I have to go and sit somewhere in a particular position with my eyes closed for a set amount of time, and that if it's too rule bound, I will not do it. But if I know that if I go for a walk and I take a certain amount of deep breaths, I'm meditating. I've done it. Great. If I know that I can be driving, but just instead of listening to that audiobook right now, I'm actually just going to really focus on my breathing as I drive, obviously with my eyes open.
I'm
um,
paying attention.
obviously, but I'm like, that counts. That does count. That's
Yeah,
like, so it's about making it what it needs to be for you so that you can do what works for you, right? And not go, well, if
yeah,
it's this is the prescribed formula, and if I'm not following that formula, I'm failing. Mm,
absolutely. And there's lots of other like things, like small things I found with, particularly when it comes to my own nutrition and how I like to eat and, how I like to sort of plan. Like I find doing a 7-day meal plan an absolute faff. Like there's
mm,
so much going on in my head. Like, and you're just thinking, oh my God, what we're going to have for dinner tonight? It takes up like so much like mental energy
yeah.
sometimes. And so one of the things that I play around with is I create a 3-day meal plan.
Hmm.
And sometimes the breakfast will all be the same, sometimes the lunches will all be the same, and sometimes the dinner will be different. Like there's lots of
Mm,
variables that you can tweak and adjust to suit how like to
yeah.
eat and how much you get bored by eating the same foods. But for me, it works. So I'll perhaps create a 3-day meal plan. I'll
Mm,
repeat that twice. And then on the seventh day, normally a Saturday or Sunday,
mm,
have more of a relaxed day and like
yeah.
just might go out for brunch and I might only have 2 meals that day because I might
Mm,
go out for brunch or dinner, and it's just
mm,
more relaxed. And
yeah.
yes, I'll still try and be healthy, but obviously
Mm,
if I fancy something, I'm going to fancy something and I'm going to
yeah.
have it. So I found that for me was quite a useful thing to just
Yeah.
reduce decision fatigue around what to eat and
Mm,
made food prep. and cooking just a little bit easier. But that again,
Yeah.
that's not going to suit everybody. And some people are like, love variety, and
Mm.
that's really great. But if you are somebody that just finds it easy to eat the same things,
Yeah.
sometimes you feel like, oh, I shouldn't be eating the same things all the time, but it can work as long as you're kind of like varying up your plant-based foods. I think from a
Yeah.
health point of view,
Mm.
it you can still just make life easier for yourselves, particularly if you're busy.
Yeah. Mm.
You just think, I don't want to think about that.
Do you know, I really love you have such a calm energy, Carly. It's so nice. And you just take the pressure off because you hear like you're sharing things that are going to help people from the inside out, right? From whether it's within your body, your brain, your, perception on things. And it's just so attainable, and you just you've shared so many great ways that anybody listening can make a few small changes and sort of which could potentially change the trajectory for them. And it's just so lovely talking to you. I'm so grateful to
Oh,
you.
thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. That's really nice.
Oh, no, you're welcome. And I'd love to, we'll share in the show notes where people can connect with you. So if anybody has listened to this and they have more questions, or they want to reach out to you or see how maybe you can support them in whatever they may be needing more help with, we'll connect you in the show notes if that's all right.
Yeah, brilliant.
People can reach out to you. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast and having this conversation with me today. It's just been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, go out there and shine your light bright because you were born to be brilliant.